Gang of Four is on News Talk 550 KTSA. Jack Riccardi Show. Weekend underway. We can talk with the gang at 599-5555. More on the story now from Norway. A Norwegian government source says one of the two explosions, at least two today, was the result of a massive vehicle bomb. They do believe that the office of the Prime Minister of Norway was the target, although the Prime Minister who was in the building did survive the blast. There is one unconfirmed fatality and several confirmed injured. One other interesting point here from abcnews.com. Earlier this month, Norwegian prosecutors filed terrorism charges against an Iraqi-born cleric in Norway who was threatening the lives of Norwegian politicians. And it was said by his group that if he was deported, there would be many Norwegian politicians who would be killed. Not sure if there's a connection or a nexus between that threat and the attack that we are still trying to piece together today. More on that story coming up at 11 from ABC and the KTSA 24-hour newsroom. Well, gang, is it game over for the renaming of Durango Street? This week a judge denied the request for a temporary injunction by the Conservation Society, leading the city attorney, Michael Bernard, to declare that's it. Even though the signs aren't up, this is now Cesar Chavez Boulevard. Is that the end of it, or is there more fight to come here?
You have to ask the Conservation Society, I guess. It's about the only people. I don't have any problem with changing the name. I have a problem with the money in this time period. Somebody called into a talk show the other day and said, we could have used that to feed a lot of kids in a school program or something like that. I don't think that was the important thing we need to do right now. I guess so. Maybe that's what they need to eat on every day.
They've got some other fights that they're going to go after, I think, so I don't know that they'll keep pursuing this one. They
feel
like they did there.
Over?
I don't think it is. I mean, I never thought that this was... People would compare it to the Broadway Hildebrand Drainage Project. It is not remotely similar. In that case, you really did have a public project that was voted on that sounded very much one way on paper and then was changed dramatically. Yeah. And in this case, you can't have... Every time you have an elected body vote on something and you don't like the vote, you can't go drag them into court and reverse it. That would not be a functional government system.
I think I'm going to have to remind you of those words someday. Okay, but I mean, beyond...
I said not every time. No.
Beyond that...
That's exactly what you got to do.
Beyond that, do you think this was more about the process and maybe not following the process? Or is this really the old Anglo versus Hispanic, they want it so we don't divide? Is it the same old battle that we've had over and over again? Or is it, as you are saying, Steven, look, as a practical matter, you're costing my business money, you didn't follow the rules, you didn't do it the way you're supposed to do it. What's going on here?
That's the way I look at it. It's just that it could have been, I think it was kind of maybe run through quicker than it needed to be. And it's just not the time to be doing that. I don't care if if they wanted to name it Ronald Reagan, I would have said, no, don't spend the money, or whoever else you want to mention.
Hey, if they renamed it Ronald Reagan, would there have been the same fight? Elaine Wolff.
Elaine
Wolff gives a throaty laugh.
No, I think
she has a good chuckle over that.
Through in San Antonio, Texas.
Well, trade.
Well, one of the things, and this came up too during the course of the conversation, it was already, and I forget what the exact terminology is, but it was already honorarily named after Hipólito F. Garcia, the judge, and so there's already that designation on it. Does that stay on there now that it's Cesar Chavez way?
Yeah. How many names can that street carry?
Maybe we could just keep it. Could be like Durango, Cesar Chavez, Hipólito F. Garcia, Boulevard Way Street.
Yeah, could be a hyphenated.
Yeah. I felt like some of the opposition was absolutely along cultural lines. And I think other people, San Antonio also, every time you change something, we get upset. I mean, look at the deal over the municipal auditorium, which is actually going to be functional now. We'll actually be able to use it for things, and it'll be awesome, and it'll connect to the Riverwalk. And yes, it was a cool old building, but it really was not very useful in its present form. And that whole process has been very much public. It was voted on. The majority of the funding came through the venue tax. We've been talking about it for years now. And now there's a slightly different design. It still preserves the facade, but you're adding something that people are taking and screening.
Yeah. I like the new design.
I think it's cool. I agree.
I'm still grieving over Maggie's. They closed Maggie's.
I know. See, there.
Now you're talking.
And that bacon wrap shrimp was awesome.
That is upset.
Exactly.
You're right.
I'm so upset about
Texas
Maggie's.
Theater, too.
Yeah,
That was my place
yes.
as a kid. I used to go to the municipal auditorium in the 60s, watch wrestling matches. They closed the wrestle.
And look what happened to you.
Jeez. Just missed those days.
Hey, a new survey says that young Hispanic men and women, 18 to 30, are strongly in favor of, among other things, reducing federal spending, as opposed to raising taxes, about a 3-to-1 margin. A majority of them agree that if taxes on business were reduced, companies would be more likely to hire. 56% said the economy grows best when individuals are allowed to create business without government interference. This is being spun as, oh look, young Hispanics are more conservative than we thought. But to me, what it might mean is that younger people are less likely to just follow in the political footsteps of their adult, their parents or grandparents. I mean, I think it would be a good thing if we're severing those ties and not just marching in lockstep with whatever the previous generation of our ethnic group believed. Is that possible or not?
Oh, of course it's possible. I mean, because
isn't that a desirable thing?
In a different context, in a different social and economic context.
Yeah,
than their parents did.
but usually people follow. I mean, let's face it. Most people seem to follow
until you're
those
about
footsteps.
18. And then you go away to college, you go to a great liberal college, and it totally explains to you how the world really works.
I don't know, Elaine. I mean, I look at some racial and ethnic groups
Yeah.
that have, for generation after generation, have been the same politically.
Okay, give me an example of one that has not changed in any way, shape, or form, and then I want
black
you, in the
vote.
context of that,
The black vote.
all right, that
Loyal
black vote has not-
capital D Democrat for more than one generation.
It's interesting that you would pick that group, right? Because that's a group that I think if you look at them historically in terms of economics has fared very poorly.
Yeah.
As a whole,
Yeah.
right? So I think, so when you talk about something like young Hispanics, to me, when you start to talk about more conservative policy, oftentimes you're talking about folks who are a little bit better off financially.
See, I don't think this is
So,
more conservative. To me,
like
this is more
'cause you're
libertarian.
But that's an economic, no, that's conservative.
Less government,
I think.
stay out of government, stay out of our lives, don't raise taxes. That doesn't necessarily have to be conservative in the social sense.
No, that's the distinction I want to make.
Okay.
Because I think also you look at a lot of these folks, I mean, gay marriage is much more widely accepted now than it was, right, a generation ago, and that is very much about younger folks.
But isn't that when you're a young person and you decide, hey, that's fine with me? In a way, what you're doing is you're not following in lockstep that. Of course, I'm opposed to that. That's unnatural. It will damage the institution of marriage because that's what they've always heard from their elders.
Right.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, also with the, also with young Latinos, with young Hispanics, I think you cannot just say, oh, because they feel this way about this one issue, that means that they're going to be more conservative overall, because you've got the immigration issue, and that is just going to continue to be very polarized.
That's why I don't think it translates into
Yeah.
what you're thinking of maybe as Republican-flavored conservatism. What I'm thinking of is more like Cato Institute, Reason Magazine, watching Red Eye on Fox News Channel.
Finally,
libertarian.
the libertarian revolution is upon us. I think it's sweet that you actually have some optimism for something, and it's good. It's good to have hope.
Thank you.
It's good to have hope.
I thought
Yeah.
I'd give you a little bun mod.
Maybe it's
before
finally
the-
going to happen.
The other day, I was sitting there talking to somebody about when they were talking about training tapes or workout tapes, and I mentioned the name Jane Fonda, and it was crickets.
Didn't know who they were.
They
Who she
didn't
was.
know who she was, and so it's going to happen. In fact, there was a story one time about some Latino families who would have John Kennedy's picture up there. You know, the grandmother, mother, grandmother, and later on, like the younger kids, they didn't know who he was. They didn't know what he represented. He didn't know, and that kind of stuff. It does fade. It just happens, You give your kids what you can,
Right.
but they're going to go off and do, they're going to mix that together with what they learn.
We're going to get a traffic check here. We're going to come back after the top of the hour news. More Gang of Four on KTSA.
Slowing down now at I-35.
Vogue news
Here we
headlines
go.
coming up at 11:20 on 550 KTSA.
Jack Riccardi, 9 till 1.
KTSA news time is 11:10. It's Friday. Gang of Four is in the house. Elaine Wolff from PlazaDeArmasTX.com is here, the online newspaper for San Antonio politics, culture. How can people
Business.
subscribe?
They go to PlazaDeArmasTX.com, and there's a big button that says subscribe now, and you click
That's a
on
good
it.
way
It takes
to
you
do
through
it.
a couple of easy steps.
You can read some of the stuff for free and other
There's
things
teasers,
you have
yeah,
to.
you can sort of see what the stories are about very easily, see what we cover.
right.
Get to the part where you're like, I have to know more.
There you go.
And then you click.
Then you sign up. All right. Jay Tope, sasports.com. Is there a subscription for that, or
No, it's free. Absolutely.
advertiser supported?
Advertisers support that and the magazine. Yes.
And you're working on an internet radio show.
It is launching August 1st.
Very good. And what will be on the radio station?
Music. It's a very music-intensive, positive music from yesterday and today. So, I mean, everything from Temptations to Selena Gomez, and it's very.
Is it
80s.
tied into sasports.com, or is this
No.
your own project?
Well, it's a project, but it's kind of under the same umbrella. But its main purpose is music and entertainment. We don't do celebrity gossip. We don't do politics.
Okay. There's too much of that on radio now. And then Steven Stoli,
I'm just
who
free.
is ready to hit the road. You're going to get an RV.
Got the RV picked out, and like I told Elaine a while ago,
How do you pick out an RV? What do you look for in an RV?
It picks you.
I've never been in an RV shop.
Well, I got to have a big bathroom. Got to have a big
Do any
bed.
of them have a big bath?
Actually, they do.
Really?
You have to look. Yeah,
Because I've seen them where they were like little phone
Yeah,
booths.
those kind I would not be in.
I'll explain later what a phone booth is. Taylor.
The one I have picked out, actually, instead of having a couch, it has lazy boys in it.
No
And,
kidding.
yeah, it's a slide that has lazy boys in it, and an actual.
So it's like a rolling man cave.
Well, you know what we're doing? I'm 40th anniversary coming of high school, and I'm in charge of the Friday Night Lights tailgating party, which is going to be my RV over at Northeast Stadium. So, yeah, it's a man cave, I guess, if I want to call that. I don't know. I'm going to get a dog, though. Got to have a traveling companion, you know.
I'll recommend a miniature dog.
Name him
Great
Charlie,
person.
and then you can do travels with Charlie.
Hadn't that been
I
done?
think that's been taken yet. Anybody in this room have migraines? I don't mean this at this moment, because what you're feeling right now is just the pain of being on the show. But do you suffer from migraines? Anyone?
I used to.
You used to
I
have
used to them
migraines.
very severely, yeah.
Migraines in the news this week in a big way. Michelle Bachmann, candidate for president, who has been treated for migraines over a period of years. In fact, had to release a letter from the congressional physician saying, yes, she takes the medication, they're under control, she's fully functional. Here's her rival, fellow Minnesota Republican, you may want to pull on your headphones to hear this, Teapaw, Tim Pawlenty, just sort of glancingly talking about it. This guy is such a weasel, it's unbelievable. I don't know what you people up in Minnesota saw in this guy, but anyway, and I'm not saying I support her or anything, but I've never heard this before. Where has this been? Oh, we got something we're worried about their health? Biden, for crying out loud, has had aneurysms and brain clots, and
Dick Cheney.
hello, like the bionic man.
Yeah. No, I'm more concerned that she said things like, that, she defers to her husband in all serious matters. Is she going to call him up all the time to get his advice? Because I'm not voting for him if I voted for her.
I think it's 2 for the
Yeah.
price of 1. Have we heard that before?
We have heard that before, and I've never bought that argument, even when I liked Hillary very much. So there's a person that you like to be president. They're the one who, as we used to say, has the finger on the button, which I'm sure now it's probably some digital device. But yeah.
It's a mouse brain.
So I think
Finger on the mouse.
there are plenty of serious problems with Michelle Bachmann, including her belief in this notion that you can cure people from being gay. So
there are reasons to oppose her, but this isn't one of them.
I don't think so. I mean, migraines, if you get a really bad migraine, it's pretty incapacitating, but they also have things that you can take to take care of that quickly.
We've had some presidents, Kennedy, FDR, Jefferson,
Reagan,
Ulysses
his later
Grant
term, maybe.
had migraines. Well, I'm not just migraine. I'm just talking about migraines. It almost sounds like migraines would make you one of our best presidents.
You know what
if you look at
worries
the
me
list.
more about what he said, though?
What?
This is from an old advertising guy. It's all called planting the seed. I call it suggestive politicking. I mean, he's not saying it. He's just making
I'm
these
not saying. I'm just saying.
But instead of going after somebody like most politicians, they go, throw this guy's just throwing out these general. Well, I'm not saying. But
This guy's kind of flailing. I mean,
Yeah.
wasn't he going to be one of the front runners? And he's nowhere.
Yeah.
He's nowhere.
Well, right, and I realize he's not there right now, but I mean, the Minnesota government just shut down. I don't think you can just be like, oh yeah, anything bad that happened after I left, their fault entirely.